Did you ever think that you'd wake up one morning and know that you'd never have to worry about money anymore? That was me last Tuesday, and my life has been turned upside down. My name is Cassandra Wilson, but everyone calls me Cassie. I'm 34, and last week I gazed at my lottery ticket in shock. All six numbers matched. I had just won $47 million. My hands were shaking, my heart was pounding, and amidst all the commotion, one crystal clear thought came to my mind. I was not going to tell a single person. Why? Well, when it comes to finances, my family situation is messy, extremely messy. Let me tell you why I did what I did before I explain. But first, leave a comment and let me know where you're watching from. And if true to life tales of family loyalty, betrayal, and jaw dropping surprises get you going, like and subscribe to Dark Revenge Book. These are the types of stories that could make you view your own relationships differently. Prior to that Tuesday, my existence was agonizingly uneventful. I was an accountant for a small marketing company in Portland. I made enough to get by, but never enough to feel secure. My apartment was compact and plain, on the outskirts of the city. Not fancy, but it was mine. I woke up every day at 6, brewed coffee, and began my day with bills and deadlines looming over me. 60-hour work weeks were the norm, particularly during tax season. Life was a grind every day. My home life was just as draining. My parents, Gregory and Diane, divorced when I was 14 and remarried within 2 years. My dad, a high school physics teacher, married Stephanie, a real estate agent with lavish tastes and an even more lavish lifestyle. My mom married Warren, a successful businessman who counted every penny. I have 2 siblings. Lisa, my younger sister, is the golden child. She went to an Ivy League college, married a surgeon, and now resides in a picture-perfect suburban house with her 2 kids. My older brother Jason is a charmer but has never gotten married. He flits from job to job and girl to girl, and his specialty is borrowing money from relatives. The cycle is always the same. A panicked phone call, tearful promises, and after that, silence until the next emergency. Extended family was not any simpler. My younger Aunt Martha, my mother's sister, was the only one who was really sincere in the family. She lived check to check as an elementary school teacher, drove an old noisy Honda, overflowing with books and plants in her small apartment, and never grumbled. By contrast, Aunt Heather, my father's older sister, had married well and enjoyed reminding people of it. She spent the holidays criticizing our decisions and making veiled comments about my job, my apartment, and the fact that I was not married. Her son, Ryan, took on her sense of entitlement but not her fortune, and had a problem with gambling that the family did not acknowledge. My past of assisting family financially made me cynical. When Jason was in need of $5,000 for rehab 3 years ago, I gave him all I had, only to discover afterwards that he never attended. When Lisa was in need of financial assistance to pay for her wedding, I put $2,000 on my credit card. 5 years have passed and she has not reimbursed me. When my dad required a loan to have his roof fixed, I sent him what I could, only to be shown photos of him and Stephanie on holiday in Cancun the next month. The only one who fully understood what was going on was my best friend Charlotte. I met her in college, and she was one of the few individuals that I trusted. She was a nurse, she knew about financial hardship, and she never criticized my emotions regarding my family. Work was not much improved. My manager Arnold would habitually steal my ideas at client meetings. My coworker Derek frequently left early, and I would cover his work, but somehow always managed to garner praise. I remained silent, kept my head down, and assured myself it would all come back to me someday. My single guilty indulgence was purchasing lottery tickets, $10 each Friday at the corner store. My mom referred to it as a tax on math-impaired folks. My brother kidded I should just give him the money rather than squandering it. My dad used to lecture me constantly on the subject of probability and statistics. He enjoyed reminding me that purchasing a lottery ticket was a waste of money. But for me, those tickets were not merely paper. They represented hope, a small, fragile possibility of freedom I could never bring myself to abandon, even after all those years of winning nothing more than the occasional $20. I had ambitions, naturally. I wanted to travel and experience more than the Pacific Northwest. I wanted to return to school and get a master's degree in something that I actually enjoyed. I wanted a savings account large enough that an unexpected car repair would not push me into a financial tailspin. But as I entered my mid-30s, those aspirations seemed increasingly elusive. I was still paying student loans, still working to eliminate a recalcitrant credit card debt, still going month to month even though I meticulously accounted for every dollar. Every month was a balancing act: rent, utilities, groceries, and possibly, just possibly, the every other week dinner out with Charlotte. I clipped coupons, shopped for prices, and could tell you which store sold what at the best price for everything from coffee to Charmin. My car, a 10-year-old Corolla, made a worrying rattle whenever it rained, but replacing it wasn't an option. Outwardly, I looked fine. Inside, I was constantly calculating, deciding whether I could afford to say yes to an invitation or if I should invent an excuse to stay home. That was my life prior to when everything changed. Normal, sometimes tough, sometimes isolating, yet steady in its own right. I had no idea how a single small piece of paper would totally redefine all that I believed I knew about my life and about my family. The day I purchased the winning ticket also happened to be my 34th birthday. I had just completed a grueling week of work. Arnold, my supervisor, had pilfered credit for my strategy that had saved a large client thousands of dollars once again. That Friday morning, I broke routine and stopped at Gus's Corner Market, as I normally did, but with a slight variation in my pattern. "Happy birthday, Cassie," Gus greeted when I came in. Gus owned that store for more than 30 years. He knew all the regulars by name and always had a nice word. "Appreciate it, Gus, the regular and perhaps an extra one for luck," I replied, giving him $20 instead of my standard 10. "Birthday treat then? Perhaps today is your lucky day," he winked. For no particular reason, I decided not to have the machine select my numbers. Rather, I selected them myself. Numbers associated with birthdays of the key people in my life. Mine, my mom's, my dad's, Aunt Martha's, and Charlotte's. Even the ones that had let me down were included. That night, I got my go-to Thai takeout, popped the cork on a bottle of wine Charlotte had sent me, and huddled in for a birthday night in solitude. The drawing was at 8, but I hardly even registered it, scrolling through Facebook and observing others celebrating with much more fervor. At 8:30, I recalled the tickets. With no hope, I opened the results on my phone. The first digit matched 3. I grinned. The second one matched 16. My heart pounded. Third, 12, fourth, 21. By this time, my palms were sweaty. Fifth, 9. I was breathing in vain. Sixth and last number, 30. I went numb. This couldn't possibly be. I double-checked, then checked again. I watched the TV, replayed the live drawing, and saw each number come on precisely as I had selected. My hands trembled so hard I dropped the remote. "No way." I breathed into the empty room. "No way." The lottery site confirmed it. I was the only winner of $47 million. After taxes, I'd receive about $28 million. An amount so unreal that I had been thrilled earlier that day over a 10% off coupon for detergent. I did not sleep a wink that evening. Rather, I read article after article on lottery winners. The tales were disturbing. Families broken by greed, long-lost friends who reappeared out of nowhere, winners who went broke within 5 years. One of the headlines referred to it as the quickest way to lose everything you hold dear. By dawn, I'd made my decision. I would accept the money, but I would say nothing. Not to my parents, not to my siblings, not to Charlotte. At least, not yet. I realized I needed time to think about this. I needed to make a strategy, really comprehend what this money would do for my life before someone else attempted to do it for me. That morning, I called in sick at work for the first time in 3 years and made an appointment with Philip Montgomery, an attorney who practiced financial planning and estate law. His building was a stylish high-rise downtown, and as I sat waiting in the waiting room in my unadorned clothes, holding my bag with the winning ticket inside, I felt out of place. "Miss Wilson," Philip said, smiling and shaking my hand. He was a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair and friendly eyes behind pricey glasses. "How can I assist you today?" I took a deep breath, set the ticket on his desk, and said, I need to know how to claim this without anyone finding out it was me. His eyes widened briefly, then his professional mask returned. I see. Well, you've come to the right place. For the remainder of 2 hours, Philip detailed my choices. In my state, lottery winners were able to take their prize through a trust or legal entity so that they could remain anonymous. He took me through the process of establishing a blind trust, how taxes would function, and why building a team of financial experts was imperative. The biggest error winners make, he said, is telling too many people too soon. Once that occurs, there's no turning back. I nodded, happy that my instinct had not been incorrect. I want to do this correctly. I don't want this money to destroy my life. As I left Philip's office, I was toting a folder full of papers and an agenda of what came next. I was also toting an odd combination of excitement and fear. I had more money than I ever imagined, but I couldn't share that happiness with anyone. I would be leading a double life, still the same struggling accountant to the world outside, but privately a multimillionaire. Philip and I established the trust, received the winnings, and opened investment accounts within the next fortnight. We created a detailed financial plan that would never leave me concerned about money again, even if I lived to be 100 years old. The funds were actual now, residing in accounts at my fingertips. But my daily life hadn't shifted. I still went to work, still complained about bills with my coworkers, still drove my clattering Corolla. But the secrecy was taking its toll. I couldn't help but think of my family. Would they be okay with me if they knew? Would they show respect for my boundaries? Or would they just view me as a walking ATM? One evening, lying awake on my bed, an idea started forming in my mind. What if I were to discover how my family would behave without telling them that I had money? What if I were to put them to the test? The strategy developed in a flash. I would set up a situation where I was in financial need. Not a large amount, but significant enough to count. I'd go to every family member with the same tale, the same plea, and see who would assist me with no expectation of anything coming back to them. Only after that would I determine who could join me in my new existence. The following day, I sat down with Philip once more to ensure my finances were in place before proceeding. We'd already established a diversified investment fund, a charitable trust fund, and a small personal account I could access without drawing any attention. Everything's okay, Cassandra, he reassured me, pushing a folder across his gleaming desk. Your financial future is taken care of. You could leave your job tomorrow if you wanted to. The idea was appealing, but I was aware that quitting abruptly would create questions I wasn't prepared to face. I think I'll stick around for now, I told him, at least until I sort out a few things. Later that night, I invited Charlotte in for dinner. We sat on my tiny balcony drinking glasses of wine, and I decided to reveal a portion of my plan. I just couldn't contain it all and trusted her above anyone. I am contemplating conducting a small experiment with my family, I said diplomatically. Charlotte arched an eyebrow. What sort of experiment? I'm going to let them know I lost my job and have to have money, just to see who really cares enough to intervene. Her look changed from interest to concern. Cassie, that's manipulative. Why would you do that? Because I'm sick of being the one who's always there for other people, I confessed, not looking at her. I want to know who would be there for me if the situation were reversed. But lying to test people? That doesn't sound like you. She put down her glass of wine. Why don't you just talk to them? Ask them how they feel about you? I laughed without humor. Right, because my family is so good at having honest talks with me. You've noticed how they treat me, Charlotte. She blew out a breath. Still, it doesn't feel right. What are you proving? I'm not proving anything, I insisted, although I knew on some level that wasn't true. I just want to know who really cares about me, and who only sees me as a resource. Charlotte slowly shook her head, worry coming between her eyes. I think you're going to injure yourself more than anyone else with this, she cautioned. But I recognize that look. You've already made your decision. She wasn't mistaken. I had spent the whole day spinning my tale, convincing enough to elicit sympathy, but not so sensational that it would be incriminating. I was going to tell all of them that the marketing company I worked for suddenly closed shop after losing its largest clients. I'd explain that I needed $5,000 to pay rent and medical bills until I landed another job. It was a big sum, sure, but not extortionate. More than most of my family members could afford, but still. In my head, I mentally prepared myself to talk to all of the people I would need to. My mother Diane and stepfather Warren, my dad Gregory and stepmother Stephanie, my sister Lisa and her husband Paul, my brother Jason, my aunts Martha and Heather, and my cousin Ryan. 10 people altogether. Each of them had, at one time or another, approached me for assistance, money or otherwise, and I had always come through. I practiced my tale the following day with Charlotte. She still wasn't convinced, but grudgingly consented to assist. "You must sound plaintively upset, but not desperate," she instructed, "and have all the facts ready about the company shutting down. They'll ask questions." I noted assiduously. The CEO had been stealing money, and the firm was under investigation. That was my cover story. It accounted for the abrupt closure and why my last paycheck may never materialize. Charlotte inquired, "And how about your job search? They'll ask." I was prepared for that also. I've been sending my resume around everywhere, but the market's tight, particularly for highly specialized accounting work. I've got a couple of interviews coming up, but there's no guarantee yet. My emergency fund? Depleted, gone on recent medical procedures? The more I honed the story, the more guilty my conscience felt. Was Charlotte correct? Was this dishonest? But then I recalled I had drained my savings for these people more times than I could remember, often at personal expense. This was not a test. This was survival. I even created a list of predictions. My mother may give something, but less than I required. My dad? A lecture on responsibility, perhaps a token sum. Lisa would put the blame on the children's spending. Jason would simply say no. Warren and Stephanie? Emphatically not. Aunt Heather would criticize me for my poor decisions. Cousin Ryan would make promises and never keep them. The only one whom I really wished for was Aunt Martha. She didn't own much of anything, but she had always been charitable. Nevertheless, $5,000 was no small amount for a public school teacher who lived alone. The strategy was in place. In the next week, I'd call every member of my family personally, tell them my story, and see who volunteered. Only then would I determine who was worthy of learning about my lottery victory. Only then would I know whose true concern it was. With a combination of trepidation and hope, I grabbed my phone. The initial call would be to my mother. Diane enjoyed reminding us about how she had put aside her own dreams to raise her kids. Certainly she would assist. My fingers shook lightly as I dialed. She picked up on the third ring, her tone diverted. "Hello, Mom," I stated, allowing just a sufficient amount of tension to enter my voice. "Cassie, what's wrong? You sound distressed." I began my rehearsed tale. The unexpected business shutdown, the forfeited paychecks, the impending bills. I heard her inhale shift, each point drawing her further into worry. "Oh, honey, that's awful," she whispered. "Have you applied for unemployment? What about your emergency fund?" I told her that it would take weeks to process an unemployment claim, and my emergency savings were gone after paying for medical tests due to worrisome symptoms. I deliberately omitted the actual symptoms and let her imagination come up with them. "Mom, I don't want to even ask you this, but I need some assistance. Around $5,000 to pay rent and doctor bills until I can find something else. I promise I'll repay you as soon as possible." There was a silence, a long one. Then her voice came back with a hesitation to it. "Oh, Cassie, you know Warren and I just made a down payment on the lake house. We're rather cash poor at the moment." Her voice changed, a touch defensive. "Have you asked your father or Lisa? Paul makes very good money working at the hospital." I hoped I could get out of asking Dad, I confessed. "And Lisa takes the kids and their private school fees." "Well, I'll discuss it with Warren and see what can be done," she replied at last. "But I can make no promises. You know how pinched he is for cash, particularly when it comes to—" Well, I did know. Warren had never considered me his responsibility. From day one, he made it clear his money was for my mother, and any children they might have had together. They never did. "Sure, Mom. Just let me know soon. The rent's due next week." I will, honey. And I'm so sorry about your job. These things always work out for the best, though. Maybe this is a sign you should change careers. Find something more stable. I wrote down her reply in the journal I'd begun keeping for this very reason. She had been worried, but then passed the buck with ease. She hadn't flatly refused, but I could already anticipate Warren's decision. The following day, I had coffee with my father, Gregory. I picked a public cafe, figuring the location could mellow his response. "You look exhausted," was his welcome as I settled into the chair opposite him. I coaxed a small smile, then explained my story from beginning to end. He listened impassively, nodding or wrinkling his brow at places. Finally, I asked if he could assist me with the 5,000. He leaned back, folded his arms, and his voice slid into that lecturing tone I knew too well. "Cassandra, I've always cautioned you about being financially responsible. This is precisely the reason I told you to have 6 months' worth of expenses in reserve at all times. What did happen to that plan?" "Life happened, Dad," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "Medical bills, car repairs. Not everyone can save that kind of money." He sighed. "And now you want to expect others to rescue you. What about how you spend money? Do you actually need that apartment in that area? Cable? Streaming services?" For the next 20 minutes, he lectured me on budgeting, job security, and living within one's means. But he never once did anything to help. "I'd be happy to assist you, Cassie. But Stephanie and I are planning on retirement. We can't touch those savings. It wouldn't be prudent." He patted my hand in a manner that was more condescending than comforting. "This will be a valuable learning experience for you. Sometimes we must bottom out before we make the changes necessary." I nodded, fighting back tears. Half genuine, half for dramatic effect. Though I had anticipated this reply, still, I hurt that he so readily rejected my needs. My final hope was my sister Lisa. I drove to her pristine suburban house on a sunny Saturday afternoon. Paul was golfing, so we could speak without being overheard. "Cassie, I didn't expect you," she cried, opening the door. "The children are at swim lessons. Come on in." Her house was magazine gorgeous. Shiny floors, high-end furniture, and immaculate family portraits hung perfectly on the walls of each room. We sat in her gourmet kitchen, drinking lattes from her commercial espresso machine, while I told her what I needed. "Oh my God, that's terrible," she exclaimed, leaning across the granite counter to grab my hand. "I can't believe they just shut down like that. Poor you." Her sympathy seemed real, and for one moment, hope glowed within me. Then I asked her to lend me $5,000. "Oh." Her expression altered, but only slightly. "Well, the timing's terrible. We just purchased the new Audi, the kids' school tuition came due, and we're remodeling the master bathroom, and also Paul manages most of our finances, and he's strict about our budget." "I know," I said quietly, already aware of what this meant. I would not have inquired had I not been desperate. I know," she said hastily. "I'll speak to Paul and see what we can arrange. Perhaps we can manage a partial payment, or even have you come and stay with us for a bit. There's plenty of storage in the guest room at the moment, but we can have it cleared." I thanked her graciously for the suggestion, but told her that moving would just make things harder for me in terms of my search in the city. She said she would call after she spoke with Paul, but the way that her eyes veered off seemed to say it all. Then my brother Jason, the ultimate disappointment. After I texted him a long message detailing what was going on, his response was brief and icy. "That sucks, sis. Really tight right now myself. We'll call you later." He never did. My subsequent messages were ignored, and each call I made went directly to voicemail. This, from the same brother who had taken thousands from me through the years, always with tearful assurances to pay him back, which never materialized. My stepmother, Stephanie, didn't waste her breath on even a whiff of sympathy. "Cassandra, I know this is difficult, but Warren and I can't assist. Perhaps this is an opportunity to practice your money management skills. Have you considered downsizing or finding a roommate?" When I reminded her about how I'd assisted in fixing their vacation cabin last year, she bristled. "That was different. That was a family property you also stand to gain from." The indignity pricked, particularly as I'd only been invited there once every 5 years. My stepfather, Warren, was even more brutal. "You're not my daughter," he bluntly stated. "I've supported your mother for years, yet your issues are your responsibility. Perhaps you should have picked a more profitable profession." Cousin Ryan, initially, was a ray of hope. He assured me he would definitely help out, and even offered to meet for lunch so he could give me a check. But an hour beforehand, he texted to say something had arisen and he'd call when he could reschedule. He never did, and soon stopped responding to me at all. Aunt Heather's reaction wasn't unexpected, but it stung nonetheless. "Well, Cassandra, I always used to say your business was shaky. I used to tell your dad you should have accepted that bank job when you graduated, but nobody listens to me." She proceeded to mention every relative's financial struggles and how they'd managed to survive without begging for handouts. I heard by evening that she'd been spreading the word about my irresponsibility. After 1 week of rejection, unfulfilled promises, and deafening silence, I was exhausted. The experiment had verified my worst suspicions. 7 individuals who had leaned on me when they were in trouble in the past wouldn't help me in return now. Then the telephone rang. It was Aunt Martha. "Cassie, sweetie, I just heard from your mom about your job. Are you all right?" Her voice was full of warmth and genuine concern. I hadn't even called her yet, waiting till the next day to call. The fact that she called me first said a lot. "I'm managing," I replied, the sentiment in my voice sincere this time. "Now listen," she said softly. "Let's go get lunch tomorrow. My treat." We met the following day at a little diner close to her apartment building. Martha was as usual. Silver streaks in her hair, tied up in a ponytail, jeans and cardigan with assorted buttons. She hugged me tightly before we sat down. "I'm so sorry about your job, sweetheart. That company never deserved you anyway." During lunch, she inquired about my job hunt in a considerate way and said she could introduce me to some of her former colleagues. While our plates were removed, she dug into her purse and pushed an envelope down the table. "I'd like you to have this," she said. "It's $3,000. I realize it's not the whole amount, but it should pay your rent for a bit." I gazed at her in amazement. "Martha, I can't. This is too much." "Nonsense. Family assists family," she cut in, grasping my hand. "And if you require a place to stay, my sofa bed out? It's not luxurious, but you're welcome for as long as you want." Tears sprang to my eyes. This time, unadulterated thanks. "Thank you," I whispered. "Don't worry so much about paying it back immediately," she told me. "Get yourself back on your feet. Get a job that you actually enjoy. Life's too short to work for a place that doesn't value you." As we walked out of the diner, she hugged me once more. "You're going to be okay, Cassie. You are intelligent and competent. This is only a setback." Driving home, I grasped the envelope full of $3,000, more cash than I knew Martha could afford to give. The contrast between her reaction and the remainder of my family's could not have been more striking. The only one who had provided actual assistance was the one least able to give. After seeing Martha, I did some investigating that left me amazed. $3,000 was almost all her savings, and I learned that she had been secretly living with type 2 diabetes complications. She had seen a recent hike in her medication expenses, and she had been taking on additional tutoring work to cover expenses. The realization struck me like a punch. Martha, who had less than anyone, had given me nearly everything she possessed without conditions or hesitation. My mother, who had just spent $8,000 to renovate a bathroom, could not manage to give her daughter $5,000 for rent and medical expenses. The following evening, I asked Martha to my place for dinner. As she sat down on my frayed couch, I caught for the first time the look of fatigue on her face, the tiny creases around her eyes more pronounced than I had ever seen them before. "Martha, I have something important to tell you," I started, putting a cup of tea in front of her. "I have not been entirely truthful with you." Her face remained open, curious instead of worried. "What is it, honey?" "I didn't lose my job. The business is all right. I still work there." The words rushed out. I fabricated the tale to find out who in the family would assist me if I needed help. Martha was silent for a moment, and then she nodded slowly. "I see." "Are you mad at me?" I blurted, not wanting to lose the one real connection I had found as a result of this experiment. She thought on it. No, not mad. Sad, perhaps. Sad that you felt you had to try people like that. She sipped her tea. But I see why you did it. Our family hasn't always been good to you. You were the only one who volunteered to help, I said to her. The rest of them had excuses or just didn't bother to respond at all. Martha shrugged. People reveal themselves to you when giving becomes difficult. I learned that the hard way myself. Meaning what? I asked. She placed her cup on the table and crossed her arms. My ex-husband, Robert. Did I ever tell you why we actually got divorced? I shook my head. The family legend had always been unclear. Something about drifting apart. I inherited a little money when my grandmother passed away. Around $5,000. Not a lot, but a lot for us back then. Robert had all these ideas about what he was going to do with the money, investing in his friends' enterprises. She smiled wryly. I wanted to put it away for our future, get us a little house someday. We argued about it for months. What happened? One day, I caught on that he had stolen my signature and taken most of the money. By then it was spent in a restaurant that folded within a year. She shuddered at the recollection. When I called him out on it, do you know what he told me? That it was our money, not only mine, and that he had an equal right to it as I did, as if my signature on the inheritance was meaningless. I was surprised. I didn't know. The family liked the growing apart tale. Less messy. She took my hand. The thing is, I realize some people view you as a resource, not an individual, and that is an awful lesson. I'm so sorry it happened to you, I said, holding her hand tight. It was a while back, but it did teach me something valuable about money and people. She regarded me with a serious expression. Money doesn't just show us the truth about other people, Cassie. It shows us the truth about ourselves. How we spend it, how we give it, how we discuss it. It's a very reflective mirror. It hit close to home. At that moment, I made a choice. Martha, there's something else I need to tell you. Something big. I took a deep breath. I won the lottery 3 weeks ago. $47 million. Her eyes widened, but she remained silent, waiting for me to continue. I haven't told anyone else. Not my parents, not Lisa or Jason, not even Charlotte. You're the first to know. Oh, Cassie, she breathed. That's life-changing. I know. And that's why I took this test. I had to know who would be there for me without knowing about the money. Martha slowly nodded. I see what you mean. But then what will you do? That's what I'm trying to decide. The money is in safekeeping and I have good financial planners. But I don't know what to do with the family. Martha thought about this. You know you don't owe anybody anything, Cassie. Not even me. But I want to help you. I pressed on. Your medical bills, a nicer apartment, whatever you need. She smiled softly. I don't require anything from you, sweetheart. I am content with my life. My apartment is tiny, but it's filled with things I adore. My car purrs along most of the time. I have my students and my books, and now this lovely secret with my favorite niece. She stroked my hand. Just being able to know you're safe and content would be sufficient for me. Her generosity made me cry. Here was a person who had given me nearly everything she possessed when she believed that I needed it, and now was asking for nothing in return when she knew I had millions. As I went on chatting late into the night, the disparity between Martha and the rest of my family came even more sharply into focus. During my experiment, rumor had spread in the family about my alleged financial difficulties. Far from eliciting concern, it had largely caused gossip and censure. My phone vibrated with a text message from my mother. Heard you asked Lisa for money as well. You should have informed me that you were going to ask everyone. It feels like you're playing us against one another. Another from my dad. Stephanie informed me that you were calling everyone for handouts. That's precisely the kind of irresponsible activity I cautioned you against. The family had made my plea for assistance into proof of my personal shortcomings instead of a way to demonstrate compassion. And in doing this, they had taught me everything that I would need to know regarding the realities of our relationships. The next morning, after my discussion with Martha, I sat down with Philip to go over my long range financial strategies. You are smart, capable, and stronger than you think. Just a bump in the road. Driving home from work that evening, I held the envelope tight in my hands. In it was $3,000. Money Martha couldn't even afford to part with, but had given without hesitation. The difference between her reaction and the rest of my family's could not have been more extreme. Out of all of them, the only one who had really done anything for me was the person who could give the least. I later found out how much that present had set her back. That $3,000 was almost all she had saved. She'd been quietly managing complications from type 2 diabetes, her drug costs had just increased, and she'd been taking on extra tutoring hours just to make ends meet. Learning this was a blow to my body. Martha, who had so little, had given me nearly everything she possessed, with no strings attached, with no asking questions. In the meantime, my own mother, who had just put $8,000 into a bathroom makeover, couldn't splurge $5,000 to assist me in paying rent and medical expenses. The following night, I invited Martha over for supper. She eased onto my worn-out couch, and I saw for the first time the weariness etched on her face, the subtle lines creased by years of unobtrusive sacrifice. "Martha," I said, setting a hot cup of tea in front of her, "I need to say something. I haven't been totally truthful." She regarded me with stillness. "What is it, honey?" "I didn't lose my job. The company is all right. I still work there." I breathed. I fabricated the story to find out who in the family would assist me if I needed them to. She was quiet for a moment, then nodded slowly. "I see. Are you mad at me?" I asked hastily, not wanting to hurt the one good relationship I'd managed to establish through this experiment. "No, not mad. Sad, perhaps. Sad that you had to test people. But our family hasn't always treated you kindly." "You were the only one who volunteered to assist," I said to her. "Everybody else had excuses, or simply ignored me altogether." Martha sighed. People reveal themselves when giving becomes inconvenient. I learned that the hard way. "What do you mean?" She revealed to me that she was divorced. How, years before, she had received $5,000 from her grandmother. Not a lot, but enough to fantasize about a little house one day. Her ex-husband had other ideas. Investments in his friend's failed restaurant. He signed her name, emptied the account, and when questioned, claimed it was our money. The betrayal still resonated in her voice. "See, the thing is," she replied, taking my hand, "some individuals view you as a resource rather than a person. Money shows more than you realize, about others and about us." What she said lingered with me, and that's when I shared with her my second secret. "Martha, 3 weeks ago, I won the lottery, $47 million. I haven't shared it with anyone. You're the first to hear it." Her eyes went wide, but she remained silent, allowing me to go on. I told her why I'd taken the test, and that I'd have no clue how to deal with the family now. "You owe nobody anything, Cassie. Not even me," she told me. "But I want to do something for you," I protested. "Your medical bills, a nicer apartment, anything you need." She smiled gently. "I don't owe you anything. My world is small, but it's my own. I have my books, my students, and now, this little secret with my favorite niece." Her generosity made me cry. In the meantime, news of my financial difficulties had circulated within the family, sowing gossip rather than worry. Text messages from my parents accused me of playing people against one another. My pleas for assistance in their minds were evidence of irresponsibility, not an opportunity to be compassionate. The following morning, I visited my financial advisor, Philip. I explained to him that I wanted to create a trust for Martha, one that would pay for her medical bills and provide her with a good retirement without having her feel it was charity. I also decided to purchase her a small, easy-to-maintain home close to where I ended up living. I resigned from my accounting position to concentrate on starting a nonprofit based on Martha's case, assisting older individuals living alone and with limited family resources. With respect to my own family, I chose not to inform them of the lottery, but I did schedule an appointment. When Sunday arrived, parents, siblings, aunts, and uncles crowded my living room, and Martha, who smiled knowingly. I explained that I was well, that I'd secured a higher paying job. Relaxed faces, obviously, they'd come expecting to be requested more cash. When my father pressed me to explain why I'd requested assistance if I had a job in the works, I replied smoothly, because when I was in need, I figured that's what family was for. The remainder of the meeting was an almost festive but cutting exchange of truths about who was there for me and who was not. Excuses were made, explanations given, even efforts made to deflect guilt back in my direction. And yet I emerged feeling unencumbered. A year went by, and my life was nothing like it was before those lucky numbers came out. I resided in a small house with a sunny backyard. Martha was just 3 blocks away, living in her single-level craftsman bungalow. Her health had greatly improved, and she spent her days working in a literacy program as a volunteer. My nonprofit had already assisted more than 200 seniors. Charlotte, now our outreach coordinator, was still my best friend. My family? We maintained politely distant, birthday phone calls, holiday visits, but without the pretend warmth of before. None of them were aware of what really happened. And I liked it that way. Occasionally, I'd discreetly assist them. Anonymous hospital bills, paid rehab fees, but never in my name. One night, Martha and I sat on her porch and watched the sunset. "You know," she said, "if you'd told everyone about the lottery right away, things would have been very different." I nodded. "They would have been a lot more attentive. And you'd never have known what was real," she said. She was right. The experiment had been painful, but it had given me something priceless: the freedom to see the truth. It opened my eyes to who really belonged in my life, and who never did. The lottery hadn't merely handed me money, it disabused me of illusions, revealing the reality of relationships I had worked years attempting to maintain, though they were never balanced to start with. The greatest lesson wasn't about them, it was about me. Prior to my win, I thought my worth was in what I could provide. I labored relentlessly to sacrifice for love and earn love, believing that was what family and love expected of me. I let myself be exploited, confusing exploitation with loyalty. Martha did. Her love never kept score. She gave without always expecting something in return, but she also honored boundaries, maintained dignity, and stuck with me in both storms and sunshine. That was actual love. Initially, I hid my winnings from everyone out of fear, fearing that money would taint my relationships. I never envisioned the secrecy itself uncovering the truth. The money hadn't altered anyone. It merely brought to light who they had been all along. Today, my life is richer in ways that can't be measured in a bank account. Through my foundation, I've built genuine connections. With Martha, with Charlotte, and most importantly, with myself. I found a deep, unshakable sense of worth that no one else can define. The constant financial anxiety that haunted me for years is gone, along with the desperate need for approval from people unable or unwilling to give it. Martha leaned over, touched my hand, and smiled. "Good job, kiddo. Not only with the money, but with what you've learned." I gazed at her, my heart full of thanks. I had a good teacher. As the sun set low, reddening the sky to gold and rose, my mind wandered back from the shock of watching those winning numbers appear, back from the pain of rejection, back to the pleasure of turning something worthwhile from an untimely fortune. Yes, the money had altered my life, but not as I had dreaded or desired. It provided me with the liberty to act wisely and see clearly. And I came to understand the greatest fortune wasn't the millions. It was the truth. The people worth holding on to are those who remain when you have nothing remaining but to give yourself. Did you ever test someone's loyalty? What did you learn from it? Tell us about your experience in the comments below. If this tale moved you, like and subscribe to Dark Revenge Book for more life lessons that could just change your thinking. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this. Your value is not determined by what you give, but by who you are. Thank you for listening, and may you always have the clarity to see the truth in your own relationships.